Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Yousef al-Rimawi, Nasser Mashni and Robert Martin. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Australia's only radio program that is totally dedicated to the Palestinian cause in English language. I would like to welcome our listeners on the AM dial and those who will join us later on 3cr.org.au/podcasts. In this week's edition, we're going to talk about Naksa, the occupation of West Bank and Gaza Strip, in addition to the Egyptian lands Sinai and the Syrian land Golan Heights in 1967, and we're living the 50th anniversary of Naksa. Stay with us and enjoy the episode. Good morning, Nasser and Robert.
Hi, Yousef.
Good morning, everybody, and good morning, you too.
Nasser, we are living the 50th anniversary of the occupation of West Bank, including Jerusalem and Gaza, of course, Sinai of Egypt and Golan Heights of Syria, and what we call the Naksa, which is the Arabic word for setback. And that is going to be our first topic to discuss this week.
Of course. So we're half a century of occupation. And so on June 5, we saw the 50th commemoration of the occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem and Gaza. And in those 50 years for Palestinians, we remember it as the second stage of the Nakba. As we know, the Nakba is continuing now, and Israel's conquered all of historic Palestine. In the 69 years since Nakba, 70 years since 1947, 69 years since 1948, we've seen the incremental expansion of Zionist Israel. And Israel, like a bulldozer, has ploughed through Palestine, taking it bit by bit. And the main reason we've not had peace is that Israel has never satisfied its hunger for Palestine and continually craves more. Further, it's always found ways to blame Palestinians
for not achieving
peace. Whilst they continually eat Palestine away, bulldoze homes,
block the return of
refugees, denying them their inalienable right. They keep stealing more and more of Palestine. Israel wants all of the land, but none of its indigenous people, which are the Palestinians, as we know. There's still only one piece left. There's a really important piece, and this is where Zionism has taken a very ugly turn. That's the religious Zionism. And the heart of Jerusalem is not yet totally in Israel's hands. And they're searching for an opportune moment to grab it. And as we know, we need to speak about Silwan and what they're doing underneath Al-Haram, excavating, looking for the ancient alleged city of David. It's also
worth saying that the renowned Israeli historians couldn't find any
archaeologists have found nothing.
And you can imagine what the world would have heard had they found anything to link the shrine or to, let's say, the Holy Mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque, to the Jewish history.
Ancient King of David's temple. And there's a full show in this. Palestinians in Silwan, which is a very close suburb to the centre of Jerusalem, they're excavating under those homes. There's cracks in their rooms. Foundations are falling on their houses. Potholes opening up in roads as they continually search. Anyway, coming back, the Palestinians have endured this second ugly face of Zionism. And the first was a secular Zionism, which stripped the Palestinians of 78% of Palestine. And these were the very first wave of European Jews that came over, and many of them were secular, didn't believe in God, but believed God gave them the land. Since the 70s and post-1967, where we saw the occupation of the remaining parts of Palestine and West Bank, the ugly religious Zionism has taken hold. And they came and stole the balance of the 22% and have moved 600,000+ Jews into what should be Palestine based on a two-state solution. And one of the things that we question ourselves, and we say, if religious Zionism takes control of the whole land, and will it turn then against secular Zionism? And what happens then to the alleged rule of law when Jewish religious law, halakha, takes over as the rule of law for the country? If and when that happens, what happens to that alleged democracy in Israel? That'll evaporate and it'll become true to its name, a Jewish state. And then, not unlike all of those countries that neighbour Israel, that it's so easy to condemn, a theocracy, where the rights are solely given sacred to those that follow the right religion.
I think since its inception, Israel has given us many evidence in violation of human rights, international law, its own democracy, its own laws, and if the continuation of the Zionist project turns into a theology over democracy, I can see more and more violations of their own laws against their own people, not only against the Palestinians.
Yeah. And look, well, I think we're sounding very pessimistic, but the reality for Palestinians on the ground is it's hard not to be pessimistic. I mean, we wake up with hope and expectation for a better future, but when we look at the facts on the ground, the negative vision that we see is, self-propelling. And, I mean, those words could seem pessimistic and negative, but if any religion takes a political power, there's no room for democracy or equality under law or respect for others. And if that seems far-fetched, I mean, we've got the Deputy Speaker of the Knesset. His name is Bezalel Smotrich of the Jewish Home Party. And last week, he dubbed his political agenda, he called it the subjugation plan. And under his plan, and this is a quote from his speech to the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, the Palestinians will be given three choices. 1, to leave the country. 2, to live in Israel with the status of resident alien, because, according to Jewish law, there must always be some inferiority or to resist. And then the Israeli Defense Force will know what to do. Now, this Smotrich was inspired by the Midrash on the book of Joshua, where God commands the ancient Israelites to annihilate the indigenous people of Jericho. And this is Smotrich's final solution. And this is the face of religious Zionism, and it's getting uglier and scarier by the day. And the government of Israel has been sure to keep it hidden from Western Christians and even from Western Jews. But it's slowly becoming more and more conspicuous to a growing number of people. The unification of Jerusalem is a farce. It's true that Israel conquered East Jerusalem, but it's not been able to unify it. The Palestinian people refuse to accept it. It is occupied territory. Most Israeli people won't even set foot in East Jerusalem. Jewish taxis won't go there. Israeli ambulances won't go there without a military escort. In spite of Israel's Judaization of Jerusalem, it's still a Palestinian city. That's the cold, hard reality.
And I will just pose a question, Nasser, and if we could answer it quickly so that we move on. How come the media is very tolerant towards the opinions of such lunatics when it comes from Israel, when they are very intolerant towards the lunatics of Muslims?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, the cold, hard reality is the biggest thing is you don't want to be anti-Semitic. If you say anything contrary to Israel, immediately you're going to be slammed as anti-Semitic. We've got our former Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, now calling for Muslim internment camps. During the week, as you know, we had that terrible incident in Brighton where former Prime Minister Abbott said Islamism has killed people, but Islamophobia never has. I mean, the absurdity. Just after 2 people were murdered in Portland defending a young girl who was breaking her fast from some rabid right-wing fascist, he said Islamophobia has never killed anybody.
What about the guy from Norway?
The guy, Anders Breivik, yeah. He was calling now for Muslim internment camps. Now, if you say anything against lunatic religious Zionism, and if you look at the Knesset today, a huge chunk of the ruling Likud party's, Benjamin Netanyahu's party, these are all right-wing, fascist. They're
proud, fascist and proud.
And if they had an opportunity, they might even find a solution.
The education minister, the culture minister,
Naftali Bennett, absolutely. Yeah.
Nasser, I want before we continue to stop on the day before Naksa, and to try to imagine Palestine the day before Naksa, so that we can imagine what happened afterwards. We're talking about from 1948 to 1967, so that's 19 years of statelessness of the 750,000 Palestinians and their families who fled, who were kicked out of their homes, villages and towns in 48. And the build-up of hope to return, and the emotions, and I can tell you that my father, for example, when he went to school in the 50s, the school was in a refugee camp, and the beginning of the day starts with the national anthem of Palestine, and also starts with the national anthem of Algeria. And that's something probably some people might find a little bit strange. Why would the Palestinian schools in the 50s and 60s play the national anthem of Algeria every morning? And that is a symbolic pan-Arabism, because Algeria was in the middle of its own independence after more than 130 years of French colonization. And they saw the occupation and statelessness, and they saw in the Algerian struggle for freedom and independence something that gave them momentum, and they would, play
a parallel struggle.
Yeah. And my uncle told me last year that even sometimes they would collect donations. So Palestinian refugees who have nothing, who live on aid, they collect donations to send to Algeria in solidarity with their struggle, and they did that. And my uncle, when he was young, and that's when in 1961, he told me that he went back home and he told his mother, my grandmother, that the teacher is saying that we have to collect donations for Algeria, and she gave him a blanket the next day. That's one thing that she could afford. So the Palestinians, yes, do you want to say something,
I was going to
Nasser?
say, I remember you were talking about our father, but, our father's Yousef Ben Bella was,
Ahmed Ben Bella, the
Algerian president and revolutionary and leader of the struggle against French occupation and colonialism. These were heroes for the Palestinian people. They shared the parallels between a foreign occupying force. And, just to go off topic for a moment, when the Algerians left, when the French left Algeria, there were many Algerians that were on the French side.
Yes.
Many turncoats.
They call them al-Harakiyin, their local names.
And they couldn't stay in Algeria after the French left. So they left with the French, went back to Mother France.
But how did France treat
them? They went back, and, de Gaulle, and they went, "We're here, de Gaulle." And he went, "What are you doing here?"
Sorry,
we're not interested. Put them in slums and whatever. The same with the Tunisians and the Moroccans. And these North African former French colonies that, never had the opportunity fought for the French, fought in World War II, never had the opportunity or were given the assistance to assimilate, became now this huge problem 3 and 4 generations later, where they're not accepted into French mainstream society. And they, are at the fringes of extremism and have now, sadly, taken to that ultimate, ISIS path. So
this is the atmosphere. There was a rise of Pan-Arabism, and there was a project by Jamal Abdel Nasser, a successful project, especially after the 1956 Suez Canal crisis and the nationalization of the Suez Canal and the victory of Egypt and the Arabs afterwards, and how Jamal Abdel Nasser supported the struggle of Algeria. And it might also be worth saying that the national anthem we're talking about of Algeria is composed by an Egyptian. So Muhammad Fawzi composed the lyrics written by an Algerian poet, and the Palestinians would sing it in their schools every morning. نحن ثرنا فحياة أو ممات وعقدنا العزم أن تحيا الجزائر. So
we should play it today.
We will play it today. Yes, it's a great piece of music, and it's very, very emotional, and it has so much meaning to me myself. So the Palestinians started building up the hope for 19 years, and they saw it happening and the rise. Of course, you had the media propaganda back then in the 50s and 60s, which tries to multiply any form of victory times 100. So you feel that we are not only ready to go back and return, but also to have the United Arab States from the Gulf to Morocco.
But we've got to remember, there was a period of time there, Yousef, with Abdel Nasser, where, he rebuilt Egypt, gave land back to the peasants, took...
Of course, there was a successful project.
Massive socialist enterprise there. But he rebuilt the army, and that army was substantial. And the United Arab Republic, when, he joined...
The unity with Syria.
With Syria. And so there was,
a real
optimism. It was real optimism.
And Palestinians subscribed to that, and they started giving their children Jamal. They're naming their children Jamal and Nasser. And now we're talking to one of them. We're talking to one of them. My uncle was also named after Jamal. His name is Jamal. Yeah. And so you have this kind of rise of Pan-Arabism, but on the other hand, you have the other, let's say, Arab project, which was the monarchies of the Gulf, Jordan and Morocco, and the other revolutionary regimes that didn't fall under the umbrella of Jamal Abdel Nasser, that was in Iraq and later on in Libya. So the rise of ideologies and the rise of, I would say, the left ideology, the socialist, the communist, and that's even before the birth of Fatah and PFLP and DFLP, because they were born in 65 onwards. Yeah. Although the roots of Fatah goes back to the 50s. But we're talking about the general atmosphere in the Arab world. However, the central issue of the whole the Arab world was Palestine. And you have to support Palestine in your media if you want to really sell anything, not sell in its commercial meaning, but to introduce yourself as a leader, as a righteously guided, I would say, politician. So the atmosphere was strong, and then came the war. Of course, the war, we can talk about it for hours and hours, but I think the result of the war, within 6 days, then you realize that this is one of the biggest defeats. And some historians refer to 1967 of a bigger defeat than 1948 because of the hope factor.
The hope factor, yeah.
Because Nakba took us by surprise. Yeah. Within a year, we lost 78% of Palestine, and that is a huge catastrophe. But there was no expectation. We didn't see that happening, and then it happened. Whereas in Naksa, you saw the opposite happening, the extreme opposite happening, and then within 6 days, everything fell apart, and then starts another chapter and a turning point for Palestinians and Arabs, and that is still affecting and shaping our present today. You're listening to Palestine Remembered on 855 AM, and this was the national anthem of Algeria. Before the break, we were talking about the day before Naksa and the atmosphere and the hope build-up that took place over 19 years, and then the collapse of that and the destruction of hope. However, maybe another chapter was open in terms of how we became the masters of our own destiny.
Absolutely.
Instead of relying on others to decide the future of Palestine.
So the Palestinian liberation movement, before the PLO and after Fatah and etc., the Palestinians started to take control, and we saw that through the operations that existed throughout the Arab world and much of the other world. But the Palestinians took control, and that in the first instance was the Fedayeen through increased incursions through from Jordan, and then the constitution of the PLO and the PNC, and ultimately Palestinians, and led by Yasser Arafat Abu Ammar, we stood up and said, we're in charge of our future and our destiny. No longer will we rely upon the shallow words of the ruling elites across the Arab world. It's time for us to take control.
I remember Nasser and Robert. I gave a lecture 2 months ago on Mahmoud Darwish and the parity of Mahmoud Darwish and Yasser Arafat. How Yasser Arafat led the Palestinian political identity in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and Mahmoud Darwish shaped the Palestinian, I would say, intellectual identity in the modern history after Naksa. And this is why I would say the legacy of Mahmoud Darwish, and of course we will talk more about Mahmoud Darwish, the Palestinian poet. We have spoken about him several times on this show, but we will definitely revisit Mahmoud Darwish. This is why the legacy of Mahmoud Darwish is so important and is bigger than just a poet of one nation.
Yeah. So one of the things I think maybe we'll put that to a side for now. Interestingly, during the week on Wednesday, Amnesty International released a press release, and this is the first time that Amnesty has come out this strong. And this is on the anniversary of the 50th year of the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem. And so I'll just read just a part of this, and we'll put this on the web link with our podcast. But the title is, Australia must ban Israeli settlement products to help end half a century of violations against Palestinians. The Australian government and the international community must ban the import of all goods produced in illegal Israeli settlements and put an end to the multi-million-dollar profits that have fueled mass human rights violations against Palestinians, said Amnesty International today. To mark the 50th anniversary of Israel's occupation of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, the organisation is launching a new campaign calling on states across the world to prohibit settlement goods from their markets and to prevent their companies from operating in settlements or trading in settlement goods. Amnesty International is calling on the Australian government to ban the import of goods from illegal settlements, said Michael Hayworth, campaigns manager at Amnesty International Australia. The illegal settlements are sustained by profits off the back of unlawfully appropriated Palestinian resources, including land, water and minerals. Australia should publicly clarify whether any existing imports have come from illegal settlements and commit to prohibiting this in the future. Now, this is a very, very strong
very
statement.
powerful.
Yeah.
And it's actually not stronger than what it should be, because reality on ground is very ugly, and we have to take measures to stop the ugliness, especially 5 decades later. Now, Robert, I want to ask you to help us explain to Australians who have no previous knowledge of the Palestinian issue or even the word settlements. How can we simplify to a listener who listens to us for the first time today?
So just before we go to that point, and because Rob's just most recent returnee from Palestine, he'll talk about settlements. We should just make the point that this is the biggest call from the biggest human rights organisation, non-for-profit NGO in the world for a limited BTS, but a BDS anyway.
A boycott movement, of course.
Are we going to have the same issues that we'd had with the United Nations report? Is there going to be a huge outcry by all the governments? And
I would say no, because the monopoly or the power of Israel over UN bodies is bigger than it is on, let's say, independent organizations. So let's hope no. So Robert, now, how can we explain to a listener what it actually means to cross by or to see a settlement? What is a settlement? You've been to Palestine, you've seen occupation yourself. I haven't been to Palestine, by the way, but you have seen Palestine.
Well, they're an absolute.
Just explain it to us.
They're an eyesore, and they're not like small villages like a lot of people think. They're like small, big suburbs built, going very, very high up, built on Palestinian land. So you can be staying in a village such as Berlin, look over the horrific, hideous wall and see and actually hear the digging of the new areas being built. The Palestinians can't go there. They can see them from a distance, but they're not allowed to cross. They have different roads. They have the full running water. The Palestinians don't. So I mean, it's a blatant stealing of land, and these poor Palestinian people sitting and looking from the distance. It's it's horrific, and it's about time that Amnesty International actually say this.
So we should say on the issue of water, we should just say the average settler in the West Bank, and this is quite an arid part of the world. The average settler receives 250 litres per person per day. The World Health Organization says that for a person to have adequate water, they need 100 litres.
At least 100 litres per day,
100 litres per person per day. Palestinians in the same West Bank, neighbouring villages where the settlements are built on villages' stolen land, they average 50 litres per day. And this is in the West Bank, let alone in Gaza, where 97% of the water is saline and undrinkable, which is why there's such a high incidence of child and adult kidney issues.
I can barely think of any aspect of life that is not affected by occupation. Freedom of movement, of course, you're talking about checkpoints and you're talking about entry and exit. Food, water, we've spoken about that. Education, health, employment, economy, security, military raids, imprisonment, killing, injury, and the list goes on and on.
It goes on and on.
You cannot actually imagine a normal life under occupation. Not only under occupation, under the longest occupation in modern history.
Yousef, it's not just life, it's death too, yeah? We've got to remember that when the Palestinians are killed indiscriminately while they're violently by the Israelis while they're protesting against the occupation, often the bodies are held for weeks, months, years on end. But interestingly, one of the good things about this Amnesty International report is they've put together a facts and figures sheet, Robert.
Yeah, and we'll put this on a link as well so everyone can have a look at it. But if we pick out a few of them, that 60% of the West Bank is under full Israeli control. I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. They can't go in or out. They can't do anything like that. There's more than 100,000 hectares of Palestinian lands appropriated for settlement use. 50,000 homes and structures have been demolished by Israel. Now, I've seen this. It's a horrible thing. The families don't get very long to be told that their house is going to get demolished. Also, if somebody Palestinian has done something that's criminal, they'll actually demolish the family's homes as well, sometimes the cousins. There's 4.9 million Palestinians face daily restrictions of their movement. I mean, that is a horrific number. 600,000 plus Israeli settlers live on the occupied Palestinian lands. Up to 99% of cases heard by Israeli military courts in the West Bank ended in conviction.
The highest conviction rate probably in the world.
Other than China?
Yeah, we're going to be very clear. Michael Danby, Australia's own Minister for Israel, condemned China for a 99% conviction rate and said that we can't have an extradition treaty with China that has a 99% conviction rate. That's just unremarkable and completely unjust and unlawful. But
let's wait for him
to talk about Israel. Yeah.
I wonder what his response would be. And just covering a few other of the facts and figures, since 1987, more than 10,200 Palestinians have been killed. We don't hear anything about that. Often unlawfully. In the same period, more than 1,400 Israelis have been killed by Palestinians. On average, Israeli consumption of water, and Naksa touched on this before, is at least 4 times that of the Palestinians. And people wonder why the Palestinians are getting upset here.
And there were 800,000 Palestinians imprisoned since the occupation, and that is 4 in 10 men of West Bank. And when we say West Bank, we're talking about the same square kilometers of Melbourne, 5,800 square kilometers. That's Melbourne and its suburbs. So can you imagine fitting settlements inside Melbourne and its suburbs?
400 checkpoints and a wall and Israeli-only roads and,
And 600,000 bad neighbours. Can you imagine?
How dare you speak out about it as well?
Well,
you'd be
this is how we can visualize occupation. I think we're coming towards the end of the show.
We'd be remiss of us not to mention also this is the 10-year anniversary of the blockade of Gaza. Almost 2 million people, 1 million of them children under 18 years of age, have had their daily calorific intake calculated and only that much water going in, only that much food going in. And listeners, I'm very excited to announce that Yousef will be giving a talk on Jerusalem and the 50 years of de-Arabisation of the Holy City, Wednesday the 28th of June, 6:30 p.m. at the Multicultural Hub, Blue Room, 506 Elizabeth Street in Melbourne. We'll put those details up on our podcast. 28th of June, lock it in your diaries, Wednesday 28th June, 6:30 p.m.
Thanks, Nasser and Robert, and thanks to all our listeners. That's it for this week, and next week will be the Radiothon. Until we meet, have a great time, and salam. Be prepared for donations for the Radiothon episode next week. Bye-bye.